travel all the way from South Africa and for 4 weeks, and they only weigh as much as a packet of crisps. This is Eric. He's the Birdman. What's your favourite bird and why?
That's a great question, Archie. I have to say, that's a great question. And it's a question that a lot of people ask me. My favourite bird in the whole world, and I've seen thousands of different types of birds, my favourite bird is a swallow. And I'll tell you why swallows are my favourite birds. Because do you know what swallows do each year?
Not really.
No. Well, you see a little swallow flying around the house here.
Yeah.
That bird, it's springtime now. That bird has just flown 10,000 kilometres to get here. It has flown from South Africa. It has flown over the centre of Africa, over the tropical rainforest where there's gorillas and chimpanzees. It has flown over the Sahara Desert. And it'll take 4 days and 4 nights without eating, sleeping or drinking to get across the Sahara Desert. It'll then fly across the Mediterranean Sea, across Europe, and it arrives back to Ireland. But here's the amazing thing. If you see a little swallow flying around Newcastle, that bird was born here, and its dad and mum was born here, and its grandparents and they come from Newcastle, and they're able to find their way from South Africa all the way back to Ireland.
Die on the journey.
Sad to say, a lot of the baby birds, particularly doing the journey for the first time, might die on the journey. Firstly, they don't know where they're going, so they could say fly out across the sea, and if it gets like a stormy day, they could fall into the sea, and they're in big trouble if they fall into the sea because swallows can't swim. They also don't know what dangers they're facing. So, you know, a young swallow maybe has never met a snake or a scorpion in the desert before, so they don't know what dangers they face. And it's an awful long journey because a lot of them don't know how to get there. So a lot of the baby birds that will leave Ireland for the first time, a lot of them don't make it back to Ireland the following year. So that's okay in some ways because there's lots and lots of birds do make it back. And usually if you have say 4 or 5 babies in the nest, maybe 2 won't make it back, but 3 will. So enough of them make it back for swallows to be still an Irish bird. And even though they go to South Africa, they're Irish because they were born in Ireland. So they carry Irish passports, if you can imagine. Yeah, so they're Irish birds. Remember I said they're able to find their way back to the exact shed that they were born in. And that's what swallows nest. They nest in sheds and in old buildings. And they come back and they will use the exact same nest that they had last year. Because the nests that they build are very strong. They get little bits of mud and they make like a little brick wall. And then they put grass through it. And then they put feathers in it and fur. And the feathers and fur is great because it allows the female, the mother, when she has eggs, to sit really nice and tight and warm. And the nests are so strong that when they come back the following year, they're able to use the exact same nest that they used last year, which is quite amazing because most birds, when they build a nest, the nest is usually in a tree, but it gets damaged in the winter. So most birds have to start a brand new nest all over again. But swallows are different. They're able to use the same nest year after year, and sometimes the nest can be 10 or 12 years old, and when they come back they do just a little bit of repairs to it just to fix any damage that's happened over the winter time.
Because is it made out of wood and it dries up?
Yeah, and it's made of little bits of mud and it becomes really rock hard. It's a bit like cement. It's a bit like bricks. It's like when you put bricks together and they put it all together with wet mud and it dries out and it becomes really, really strong, and it can last years and years and years. That's why I always say it's very important, if you have swallows nesting in your shed in one year, you try and make sure to allow them in the next year because that's where their nest is.
because they don't have mud to use for their nest.
Yeah, and actually that's also really important. I'm glad you came up with that, because if it's really dry, it's important to try and find a bit of mud in your back garden and put some water on it, because they need to get wet mud to actually build a nest, and then it will dry out. But if it's too dry, they won't be able to get enough mud to build their nest. And the other thing I always say is that if you have a dog or a cat, or like us, and you have sheep next door, they will take the wool. So if you brush your dog, put the hair out, so all the birds, particularly the swallows.
What do swallows look like?
The swallow has a little red patch just under his chin, and they're lovely glossy blue. But it's those big long tail feathers that make swallows so special. And you'll often hear them. They have a lovely twittery call when they're flying around. So you'll often hear swallows coming before you see them. But it's those big, huge, long tail feathers. That is what makes a swallow a swallow. And it's those that allow the birds to twist in the air and catch insects.
Thank you, Eric. And don't forget to be happy out.